right, so today we're diving into something pretty cool. The Airbus H145M helicopter.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Looks like
I may have gone a little overboard.
it's all good. We'll unpack all this information about this chopper. Everyone's saying it's a game changer, and it's not just about like troop transport or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to find out why.
Well, it really does change things up, that's for sure. You're right. It's not just your typical military helicopter. It's designed to be a platform that can, quickly adapt to a whole bunch of different missions.
I was reading about that.
Like, you name it, it can probably handle it. Troop transport, cargo runs, even medical evacuations.
Right, and I saw it can even be a fully armed gunship. So 1 minute it's dropping off supplies, and then the next thing you know, it's providing close air support.
Yep.
It's pretty wild.
It is. It's like something out of a movie, almost.
Yeah.
But that speed of transformation is really key, In a real-world operation, those minutes can really make all the difference.
Right. Imagine you need to get a team into a hot zone fast.
Yeah.
Maybe provide some fire support, but then things change and you need to evacuate casualties. The H145M can just switch gears and handle it all.
Seamlessly.
Most helicopters just can't do that.
So, okay, it's like having multiple helicopters all rolled into one.
Right.
What makes that possible? What's the secret sauce?
Well, it's a mix of some really clever engineering and a modular design, I think. At its heart, it's a super tough, robust platform with powerful twin engines, which is important, of course, for safety, redundancy. But what really makes it stand out, I think, is this ability to swap out different mission equipment packages.
So it's tough, A&D, flexible.
Exactly. Plug and play. So it can basically morph into whatever the mission needs. Need to carry troops, got seating for 10 soldiers, plus your 2 pilots, need a flying ambulance, fits 2 stretchers, and a whole medical team.
And when they say it transforms into an attack helicopter in minutes, they mean it.
That's where that H-Force weapon system comes in.
H-Force, yeah.
The brochure was really hyping that up.
Yeah, the H-Force is a big deal. It's a modular weapon system. That means you can customize its firepower depending on the mission. It's not like a one-size-fits-all thing.
Okay, so walk me through it. What kind of options are we talking about here?
Sure. So it starts with what they call option 0. It's basically like a light attack setup, more for reconnaissance and maybe some limited engagements. It just uses ballistic firing, and it relies on a helmet-mounted display for the pilot to aim. Okay,
so it's not going in all guns blazing, but it can hold its own if needed.
Exactly. Then you can step up to option 1,
right,
which adds, more punch for ground support and escort missions. Now you've got ballistic firing for both the pilot and a gunner, plus an electro-optical system to help them, acquire targets and stuff.
Okay, now we're talking some serious firepower.
Yeah, it definitely steps it up a notch, but then it gets even more interesting with option 2. This is the full-on attack configuration.
Wow.
Capable of firing both ballistic weapons and guided missiles.
No kidding.
Think rockets, cannons, even air-to-air missiles.
Wow, so this thing can go from 0 to 60, firepower-wise, pretty darn quickly.
You got it.
That's impressive.
And then there's option 3, which is allows for heavier missiles. Depends on what the mission calls for. The flexibility is pretty amazing.
I can see why so many countries are interested in this helicopter. I mean, you don't need a whole separate fleet of attack helicopters when you can just modify this one.
Right.
That's going to be a huge selling point.
Oh yeah, huge. It's a real, force multiplier. It lets countries beef up their military without the massive expense of getting dedicated attack helicopters. That's especially appealing for, nations with tighter budgets.
Absolutely.
Right.
So speaking of that, who's actually using this helicopter? The brochure mentioned Germany and Belgium.
Yeah, Germany just recently put in a big order for the H145M.
Okay.
They want to modernize their armed forces, and they were impressed with its versatility and the potential cost savings, of course.
That's a big endorsement.
It is.
And what about Belgium? What are they doing with it?
Belgium's doing something really interesting. They're using the H145M for both their military AD, their federal police.
Wow.
Shows you how capable it is.
Yeah, I can see the appeal for law enforcement.
Right.
Imagine pursuing a suspect or providing air support during a hostage situation.
Exactly. And even the U.S. Army uses a variant of the H-145. It's called the UH-72 Lakota. They mainly use it for, like, utility and training.
Okay.
But it speaks volumes about how reliable and adaptable this platform is.
Yeah, and I was also reading about its potential for maritime security. That seems like a whole
different ball game.
Yeah.
It is, but the H145M can handle that environment too. Think about, like, Coast Guard patrols, search and rescue at sea, even anti-piracy work.
It's got it all.
It does. The 4-axis autopilot, the emergency floats, weather radar, all that stuff makes it incredibly versatile for maritime security.
Okay, starting to see why they call this a game changer. We've talked about how adaptable it is, the impressive firepower, and the global appeal, but there's got to be more to it, right? There's a reason everyone's buzzing about this helicopter.
You're right. We've really just scratched the surface. What truly sets the H145M apart is the technology under the hood. Things like the Avionics suite and the level of pilot training involved. That's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back.
We're continuing our deep dive into the H145M.
You know, last time we mentioned that 95% availability rate.
Right.
It's pretty impressive. That means this helicopter's ready to go almost all the time.
It is.
I'm curious what contributes to that kind of reliability. It seems like almost unheard of, especially for, a military aircraft.
It is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. It really shows you how robust the H145M's design is. And, the support system that Airbus has in place, it's really comprehensive.
Okay.
The H145M actually benefits from the track record of its civilian counterpart.
Oh, interesting.
The H145.
Okay.
Which is, already known for being really durable in tough environments. They've, taken all those lessons learned and applied them to the military version.
So it's built to last.
Yeah.
But it's got to be more than just, tough materials, right?
Right, for sure. Airbus uses top-notch materials and components, but they've also they've really focused on making maintenance as efficient as possible.
Makes sense.
They have a global network of service centers, and spare parts are readily available, so any issues can be addressed really quickly.
Yeah, because downtime is the enemy, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to military operations, you can't afford to have a helicopter sitting on the ground for weeks waiting for a part.
Exactly. And then there's, the human element too.
Right.
Airbus provides really rigorous training for both pilots and the maintenance crews, making sure they've got the skills and knowledge to keep these helicopters running smoothly. It's a real team effort.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so reliability is a big selling point for the H145M, but it's also gaining a lot of traction globally. We talked about Germany and Belgium, but are other countries interested in it?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing more and more interest in the H145M from countries in Asia, South America, even Africa.
Wow.
Its versatility is a big draw, especially for nations with diverse needs,
Yeah. It's easy to assume that, when we talk about this kind of military hardware, that it's only for wealthy nations with big defense budgets.
Right.
But is that the case with the H145M?
Not at all. One of the biggest selling points is actually its cost effectiveness. Remember, it can do all these different missions, stuff that might normally require multiple specialized helicopters.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage for smaller countries. They can modernize their forces without, spending a fortune.
So it's like getting multiple helicopters for the price of one, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's not just the initial purchase price either.
Right.
The H145M has low operating costs, which is huge for countries with limited resources.
And I imagine its adaptability means it can be tailored to different environments.
For sure. Mountains, jungles, over the ocean. The H145M can be configured to handle it all.
Wow. It really sounds like this helicopter is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But technology changes so fast.
It does.
How can they ensure it doesn't become obsolete?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Staying ahead of the curve. It requires a lot of investment in R&D.
I bet.
Airbus is really good about that, though. They're always working on new features, upgrades for the H145M, better sensors, new weapon systems. It's not a static platform.
So it's constantly evolving.
Exactly. It has to in order to stay ahead of the game.
Okay, so we've been focusing a lot on the H145M itself, but I want to zoom out a bit. How do you see this type of platform fitting into the bigger picture of the future of warfare? Is this a sign of things to come?
I think so. The H145M, in a lot of ways, is a glimpse into the future of warfare. Adaptability and multi-role capabilities are going to be essential.
I can see that.
We'll probably see a shift away from like those giant single-purpose weapons platforms towards smaller, more flexible systems.
It's like a David versus Goliath kind of thing, where versatility trumps brute force.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the H145M is going to do really well in that kind of world.
Right. And it's not just about warfare either. We talked about its role in humanitarian aid, disaster relief.
Right.
Those capabilities are going to become even more important as the world faces new challenges.
They are. As we see more natural disasters, platforms like the H145M are going to be crucial for responding effectively.
Yeah. Get in there quickly, access remote areas, get supplies and personnel where they need to be.
Exactly. So the same technology that can be used in a conflict can also be a really powerful tool for good. It just depends how it's used.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the H145M, its hardware, its potential, but what about the brains of the operation?
You mean the Avionics suite?
Yeah. This seems to be a major differentiator for the H145M.
It really is. This is where you see Airbus's commitment to cutting-edge technology.
Okay.
Avionics is more than just a fancy cockpit. It's a whole system designed to make things easier for the pilot, and ultimately to make the H145M safer and more effective.
So break that down for me. What are some of the key features? What makes Avionics so special?
Well, there's the 4-axis autopilot, which we've mentioned before. It can handle a lot of different maneuvers really precisely.
Oh, wow.
From hovering to complex approaches, it takes a lot off the pilot's plate.
Okay.
They can focus on the bigger picture. But Avionics also has this really sophisticated suite of sensors and displays. Gives the crew a really clear picture of everything going on around them.
So it's like giving the helicopter a sixth sense, almost.
Yeah, something like that. And all that information goes right to the pilots on these big, high-resolution displays. It's easy to understand, even in really stressful situations.
Okay, so it's not just about having the data, it's about making it useful.
Exactly. And Avionics takes it a step further by integrating all the helicopter systems, everything from navigation and communication to engine management and weapons systems.
Wow.
It's all in a single user-friendly interface.
So it's like the central nervous system of the H145M.
Yeah, I like that. It coordinates everything, makes sure it all works together. That level of integration is really important. Makes things run smoother, reduces the pilot's workload, and just makes the whole mission safer and more effective.
So it's clear that the H145M is packed with all this advanced technology, but with all this complexity, how do pilots even train to operate it? It must take a lot of skill.
It does. Training for the H145M is, it's pretty intense.
I bet.
It starts with a lot of classroom instruction, covers everything from the helicopter systems to like mission planning and tactical procedures.
So it's not just about flying. It's about understanding how to actually USE this helicopter in all sorts of situations.
Right, but the classroom is just the beginning.
Of course.
Then they move on to simulator training.
Ah, yes. The simulators.
These things can replicate just about any flight condition you can imagine.
Really?
From calm skies to crazy turbulence, different weather, day or night, you name it.
Wow. So they could experience everything from like routine takeoffs and landings to emergency procedures, all without leaving the ground.
Exactly. It helps them build their skills and confidence before they get in a real H145M. And the simulators can also replicate the H-Force weapon system.
No kidding.
So pilots can practice engaging targets and develop those tactical skills.
That's amazing. It sounds incredibly realistic.
It is. And it's not just the pilots who get all the training.
Right.
Maintenance crews also go through specialized training on the H145M system. Got to make sure it keeps running smoothly.
It sounds like Airbus has really invested in a comprehensive training program. Covers all aspects of operating and maintaining this helicopter.
They have, and it shows. It's a big part of the H145M's amazing safety record and its effectiveness in the field.
So we've talked about the versatility of the technology. Now I want to hear about some real-world applications. How is the H145M being used out there?
Well, one area where it's really making a difference is special operations.
Oh, interesting.
It's agile, it's fast, it's quiet.
Makes sense.
Perfect for getting those special forces teams in and out of tricky situations.
So we're talking those like covert missions where stealth is super important.
Exactly. Imagine a team needs to be dropped into hostile territory under cover of darkness. The H145M can do that quickly, quietly. Minimizes the risk of being detected.
Wow. Like a ninja helicopter.
I like.
And then there's there's search and rescue, right?
Yes. The H145M is really valuable for both land and sea rescues. Powerful engines, long range, advanced sensors. It can cover a lot of ground, so to speak, and locate people quickly.
So rescuing hikers, survivors of shipwrecks, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And the spacious cabin, the ability to carry specialized equipment like rescue hoists and medical litters, it really makes it a lifesaver.
It's amazing to think about all the lives this helicopter has saved.
It is.
But it's not just about those dramatic rescues, right?
Nope.
It can do other stuff too.
Absolutely. It's being used for things like border patrol, disaster relief, even firefighting.
Wow.
It can handle tough conditions, transport people, deliver equipment quickly. It's a versatile tool for a lot of different operations.
Okay, so we've seen that the H145M is way more than just a helicopter. It's changing how we think about military aviation, global security, humanitarian aid. It's blurring the lines between those traditional categories.
You got it. And that leads to some bigger questions about what this kind of platform means strategically.
That's what I'm curious about.
How will platforms like the H145M shape the future of military aviation and global security? That's something we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've spent the last couple parts of this deep dive really getting into the H145M.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
Everything from its design, its capabilities, all that cool tech on board.
Right, but like I said at the end of last time, there are some, bigger questions to think about.
Exactly. The H145M is not just a fancy piece of hardware. It's like a whole new way of thinking about military strategy, force structure, all of that.
That's it.
So strategically speaking, what are the implications of a platform like this? It seems to challenge that traditional idea of having, a different aircraft for every mission.
It does. In the past, militaries had to make some hard choices, like, do we spend money on an attack helicopter or a transport helicopter? Or do we need a dedicated search and rescue platform? It was a real balancing act, especially for countries with, limited budgets.
And so you're saying the H145M changes all that?
Yeah, it could. With the H145M, you're getting one platform that can adapt to all those roles. Potentially, huge cost savings. Militaries can do more with less.
So it's not just about buying a helicopter, it's about how that purchase could affect the whole force structure.
Exactly. It's about having a force that can react to different situations, different threats. That's a big advantage in today's world.
Okay, I get the upside, but are there any downsides? Do you run the risk of spreading yourself too thin? Being good at a lot of things, but not great at any one thing.
It's possible. The H145M is versatile, but a specialized attack helicopter might pack more punch, or a transport helicopter might be able to carry more. It's a trade-off.
But for a lot of countries, that trade-off might be worth it, especially if you consider the cost savings and being able to, adapt to unexpected situations.
I think so. Better to have it and not need it, right? Than need it and not have it.
Exactly. And then there's the technology factor. We talked about all those advanced systems, but technology moves so fast.
It really does.
How do they keep this thing from becoming outdated?
Yeah, that's a challenge. Staying ahead of the curve takes a lot of continuous investment.
Bet.
Airbus knows that, and they're always working on improvements for the H145M, better sensors, weapon systems. It's not just sitting there.
Always evolving.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we've been focusing on the H145M itself, but I want to zoom out again.
Sure.
How do you see this kind of platform fitting into the future of warfare? Is this what we can expect to see more of?
I think it is. The H145M is sort of a preview of what's to come, I think. Adaptability is going to be key. We'll probably see less of those huge single-purpose weapons and more agile systems.
Yeah, kind of like that David versus Goliath thing again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where being adaptable is more important than just raw power, and the H145M is built for that.
And it's not just warfare either. We talked about the humanitarian aid aspect, disaster relief. Those are going to be even more important going forward.
Absolutely. As climate change and other issues cause more natural disasters, platforms like the H145M will be crucial for responding. Get in there quickly, reach those difficult areas, get help where it's needed.
So it's like the same technology that can be used in conflict can also be used for good.
That's the thing about technology. It's a tool. How it's used, well, that depends on us.
So after this whole deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's that the H145M, it's not just a helicopter, it's a change in how we think about military aviation, global security, even humanitarian aid. It shows what's possible when we really push the limits of what technology can do.
Right, and it's not always about inventing something completely new. It's about taking what we have and making it the best it can be. That's what Airbus has done with the H145M.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that about wraps up this deep dive.
It's been fun.
Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, keep looking up.